शान्तिः शान्तिः सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगं सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भूयम् उतामृतत्वस्येषा नः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागिश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैः पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहा भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्मात् विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिः सप्त समिधः कृताः देवायज्ञन्तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषं पशुम् तं यज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतं वृषदाज्यम् पशोगस्तागश्चक्रे वायव्याने आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभजादतः गावोह जज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावयः यत्पुरुषं व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखं किमस्य कौ बाहू काभूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहुराजन्यः कृतः ऊरो तदस्य जद्वैश्यः अभ्यागं शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षोः सूर्यो अजायत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षम् शीर्ष्णोद्यौः समवर्तत पद्भ्याम् भूभिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार चक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्च तस्रः तमेवं विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अयनाय विद्यते यज्ञेन यज्ञमजजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकं महिमानः सचन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्याः सन्ति देवाः अभ्यः सम्भूतः पृथिव्यैरसाच्च विश्वकर्मणः समवर्तताधि तस्य त्वष्टा विदधद्रूपमेति तत्पुरुषस्य विश्वमाजानमग्रे वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात् तमेवं विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनां पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानां पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो ऋचाय ब्राह्मये ऋचं ब्राह्मं जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवं ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनौ व्यात्तम् इष्टं मनिषाण अमुं मनिषाण सर्वं मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षो सूर्यो अजायत मुखादिन्द्रश्च अग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत. So this is the mantra that we will start today, and this is the last mantra that Swami Maheshananji has commented on, and I think I will also stop at this point. I will see if there are some comments that we need to make for the rest of the mantras, but if they are, they'll be very, very short, and so I'm just going to follow his lead in covering the main concepts that he wanted to communicate with these 12 verses. And so let us begin the last one. So in this 12th mantra, the portion of the yajna, because the whole thing of Purusha Suktam is in the form of a yajna, an offering by a human being for his or her own good. This is the background of the Purusha Suktam. It certainly is a stuti, it's a praise of Ishvara, no doubt about it, but in the form of a yajna. So when we revise the whole thing, we will go over through all the steps that we have already taken. But here, the step that is the portion of the yajna which is now being dealt with in this 12th mantra, starting with Chandrama Manaso Jataha. With this verse, what is being pointed out is that section of the yajna where the offering is given to which devata. So this is very devata specific. section of the Purusha Suktam. So now we will see why this is important. Because you can say that, what's the big deal? We can give an offering to Ganesha. We all know that, who is the remover of obstacles. We can give it to Hanuman, who epitomizes loyalty. And by the way, on the topic of Hanuman, it really dawned on me slowly that the Hanuman's value as a devata is twofold. Not just the loyalty to Rama, but also to discover the power within him which he was either not expressly putting forth or was unaware of it. This is an important lesson for each one of us. Really, the lesson is when we pray to Hanuman, when we do an upasana to Hanuman, when you go to a Hanuman temple and you offer the offering, the yajna to Hanuman, it should be the loyalty to Parameshwara, epitomized by Hanuman's loyalty to Sri Rama. The Rama is Parameshwara. So this is number one. Perhaps equally, if not more important, is to unearth a certain power that we all have that is beneath the surface, and either we are unaware of it or we are unable to express it. Either we are fearful, we are doubtful, for whatever reason. This is a very important thing because we take an idea of ourselves as kind of like a simple person, and not very powerful, and not being able to accomplish much in our life, more or less. It may be different for different people. And actually, this was the situation with Hanuman. That really speaking, he was Pavanaputra. He was the son of the god of wind, the powerful wind. So his lineage was amazing power from his forefathers. But he was unaware of it, or he was unwilling to really express it. He was kind of shy. But there were some people in Rama's retinue who kind of knew who he was. And when there was some issue with who can help me cross the bridge and rescue Sita, and everybody said, we'll help you, we'll help you. Even small squirrels came through. All those kinds of things happened. But Hanuman was just sitting quietly until somebody said, Hanuman, do you know how powerful you are? You can just fly from the southern part of India all the way to Sri Lanka without having to stop anywhere. This is how much power you have. You realize that, don't you? And that when he was awakened to this power, he did it. And this has a great lesson for each one of us, really speaking. Each one of us, regardless of who we are and what our station in life is and so on, if we can simply understand the power that we have, not only the loyalty, the two of them go together. It's an interesting pair. We need to have absolute loyalty to the discovery of Ishvara in myself. And we also need to have the confidence that I can do it. Ishvara will be very pleased. Because right now he's saying, I don't understand why this fellow or this lady doesn't do it. Why wallow in the dukkha of the world when you in fact can invoke, I think that's the right word, when you can invoke that power. So anyway, so Devata for Hanuman. So we can actually have Hanuman as a Devata. So this whole section is all about the power of the Devatas and the power that can be transferred to each one of us. And so this is a very beautiful section, and we will see how this is laid out for us. And we'll go through that. So, but anyway, the whole section is all about the Phalarupa Devata. Phalarupa Devata means the various deities, the various manifestations that can give me the results that I really need to be free in my life. This is the section all about. So first, just the simple word meanings of this verse before we go into the explanation and commentary and so on. So it says, Chandrama manasaha jataha. So manasaha means of the mind, from the mind. This is what is called apadana panchami in Sanskritam. So this is the source. How, from where did it come? Where did Chandrama, the moon, how was it born? It was born from the mind of Ishvara. Manasaha jataha. So here Swami Maheshananji points out that please be careful. There are lots of commentators who do not understand the significance of this, and they will say that the moon is the mind of Ishvara. And similarly, they will say that the sun are the eyes, is the eyes of the Ishvara. Chakshoho suryo ajayata, etc. He says this is wrong. This is wrong. Because if that was the case, it would not say manasaha, which is the fifth case, which is apadana panchami. From the mind, they will say the Chandrama is the mind. It will specifically say that, but it doesn't say that. And it says that for a reason. We will express that in a minute. So anyway, Chandrama manaso jataha means that the moon is born from the mind of Ishvara. Then the next one is Chakshoho suryo ajayata. That from the eyes of Ishvara, the sun is born. S-U-N, sun is born. Then Mukhad Indrascha Agnishcha. Mukhad Indrascha Agnishcha. From the mouth, Mukhat, Indrascha Agnishcha. Both Indra and Agni are born. So we will see I'm just giving you the word meaning. And then Pranat Vayurajayata. From the prana of Ishvara, then the air is born. It's not the other way around. It's not that air is the source of prana. Prana is the source of air. So these are the four devatas are mentioned. The mind, or the four manifestations of Ishvara are mentioned. One is the mind, the second one is eyes, the third one is the ears, and the fourth one is the mouth. Okay, so from the ears, Pranat Vayurajayata. So here you have to impute ears from the ears, the air and the prana is born, and from the mouth, the fire and Indra, the very strength of human beings is born. Okay. All right. So that is the word meaning of this mantra. Now let us look into the explanation of what it means. So, what it means is only 4 devatas are talked about as examples. Really, they are samples of saying that everything is born from Paramatma. Everything is born from Paramatma. It's like Maheshananji says that if you scratch anything, the stuff that the thing is made out of is Parameshwara. So the table is apparently made out of wood, but really speaking, if you keep on scratching this further and further, you will find Parameshwara. If you scratch the earth, you will see nothing but Parameshwara. If you scratch the human beings, you and I, you will see inside of that is Parameshwara. Really, here Swamiji uses it in beautiful Hindi. He says, "Mal to wahi hai. Isme kya mal hai?" Means that supposing you have a basket and you open up the basket. Mal means the stuff inside, the very content of it. What's the reality? What you have the covering of any basket, but just like people bring a gift at the time of wedding, and you bring a big basket. Just recently, I was wishing happy birthday to my aunt in Amritsar, who's 88. And I was telling her that in 1952, she was married to my uncle. And at that time, my grandparents both went to New Delhi to look for this girl. And we were waiting for them to come back. That scene is so vivid in my ears, in my mind. And so my uncle and I, we heard the rickshaw, the three-wheeler, who had a ring. And so he rang, and both of us went outside to see what the big thing is all about. And we saw our grandparents, my grandparents and his father and mother, my uncle's father and mother, bring together a huge basket and with a big smile on their face. So that means the marriage has been fixed. No telephone call, no pictures, no nothing. Absolutely no communication. They just beamed with the basket, and the basket was full of all these sweetmeats. It's called mal. Kya mal hai usme? So Swamiji says that the mal of everybody, the stuff of everybody is Parameshwara. How? Because everything originates from Parameshwara. This we have to see. It may not be visible to us, but this we have to see the truth of it. So, now, there is a reason why the Utpatti means the very presence, the very start of devatas. Even the mention of devatas is being given. There's a reason for it. What is the reason? The reason is that there are two sets of truths, three sets of truths actually. So those correspond to the three Shantis. Adi Bhutam, Bhautikam, which means that the whole world of things that I see is called Adi Bhautikam. The second one, so here that is not involved. The second is what called Adi Daivam, which means that the word of Devatas. Word of Devatas means what? It means their reason, their functionality, their power, their ability to bless us are all different. We're all different. But to understand the Devata's power is Adi Bhautik, Adi Daivam. So this is the word of the Devatas. Then the third one is Adhyatmikam, which is my own power. Because you and I are equipped with an amazing set of things. The fact that we are born, and that we are alive, and we can move our eyes, and all the inside of the body. There's a lot going on. There's a certain power to be alive and to do and to know. And so all of that is the very samagri, all the things that I have in my possessions, how I manipulate them, how I utilize them, how I lose them. All those kinds of powers to breathe, power to have the blood flow, all those kinds of things. Muscular power, power to leave, to come back, to know, to forget. All those powers are called Adhyatmika. So here, there are two things involved. So not looking at the bhutas, panchabhutas, just looking at the Adhyatmikam and Adi Daivam. This is represented by internal and external. Internal and external. So here, mind is the internal and the moon is the external. Okay, number one. Number two, the purpose of the yajna and the purpose of the prayers during the yajna. This is what's called upasana. So upasana means a prayerful attitude, a devotion, bhakti. We need to understand what is the function of the bhakti, what is the function of the upasana, what is the end point of upasana. When do I know this I am successful? How long do I have to keep doing that? This is the topic of these verses. So here it is said that as long as you and the Devata are seen to be separate from each other, your upasana is incomplete. So the purpose of your Shakti merging into the Shakti of the Devata is the final point of the upasana. You need to be devoted to the Devatas in such a manner that the qualities of the Devata become your and my qualities. So looking at Hanuman, for example, just I picked out that example. We can go to Ganesha or anyone else. If you think that you are as devoted to the discovery of Parameshwara in your own heart as Hanuman is devoted to Rama, then your journey is complete. If you invoke the power to explore and the confidence to continue with your search as much as Hanuman did in the search of Sita, your journey is now complete. And if it is not yet there, there is a need for upasana. There is a need for trying. Here Swamiji makes a very beautiful point, really, and the same point that Swami Dayananji used to make, very almost like the same example. And that is the two examples of a swimmer or a brand new kid who is learning to ride the bike. In both of those examples, we know what the final result is. And the result is that if you know swimming well, you don't even have to make an effort to swim. You just literally float on the water. You're playing water polo. My granddaughter is playing, she's a very good swimmer. And she is now in high school and she's parlaying her swimming skills into playing water polo. And water polo is a very difficult thing. I mean, I can't even swim. And so now when I was asking her the other day, I says, when do you play, how do you play this difficult game? She says, it's not that, it's pretty easy. Because she is not trying to swim anymore. That skill is hers. And now she's worried about the ball and how to score and how to stop it and so on. Similarly on the bicycle, for a while we can all recall how difficult it was because we thought that we could be falling left or right and somebody was holding us and we were crying because we couldn't do it. And suddenly if you keep doing it, there come a point where now you can see dangerous things. People are looking at their iPhones with no hands on their bicycle handle. And the bicycle handle is going straight. They just take a look at it to see everything okay, yeah. Then they go back and texting it. Amazing. No effort required. So this is exactly the process of the upasana also. So it says that you need to make sure that your upasana is properly done for each of the devatas. Okay. Now the next question is, which devata should I select? What is the reason for it? So here, this is an important section to understand. So, Swamiji says that, listen, just look at, so this is also the similarity between Adhyatmikam and Adi Daivam. Look at the similarity. It's almost the one and the same. How? If you look at yourself and how we function as human beings, what we have at our disposal are various functions of my body and mind. So there's the eyes. that allow me to see things, ears to hear, mouth to eat and talk, skin to touch. All those kinds of things all are there, all different from each other. Functions are all different. The shapes are all different. Their laws are all different. The health is all different. But you know what? They're all mine. Again, as we saw earlier in the Samaja Purusha, it is looking at unity in diversity. You don't look at your own hands and find there is some, even though you can see your hands, you can visualize it, you can feel it, you can see it, but it is you. It is not as though the hands are somebody else's. It's your hands. Even though there is so much diversity in the various functions of my body, but all those functions are mine, are I. This is one thing. Now look at this. This is something even more interesting. Okay? So now let us look at the example of electricity in various appliances. So you look at these lamps that are lighting up. The question is, who is lighting it up? Is it the bulb, or is it the electricity? So the bulb is simply a method of converting electricity. The real power of lighting comes from the electricity. Similarly, the real power of a fan is not in the armature of the machine that makes the blade go quickly around and round and create some air for the fan, but it's in the electricity. So really the electricity is the one. If the armature is not working very well, or if the bulb, this is even a better example, if supposing the bulb sometimes, it starts to flicker, and the light is not steady. There's not to blame the electricity, it is to blame the light. If the fan is not functioning very well, it is because the setting of the fan was too low. And so really the power comes from the source, not from the place where the source is expressing itself. That is a secondary importance. Similarly, if I am functioning, I have the power to see is not in the eye, but in the Atma. The power, the Shakti of hearing is from the Atma, not from the ear. So these are called golakas. In Sanskrit it's called golaka. Golakas means just a device sitting there. So the eyes do not see, is what Kena Upanishad is all about. The whole Upanishad is to express this very clearly, that really speaking, what is behind the eye is the one that is making it see. The seeingness is in the Atma, not in the eye. The Atma is not there, then you cannot see. Of course, if the eye is defective, there also you cannot see. But my point about the flickering one was that at least if the eyes are somewhat seeing, you can still see. But if there's something like, if the Atma were to disappear, the eyes completely cannot see. Exactly what happens when the body dies. One moment there is Atma inside the body, and another there is a disassociation of the body and the Atma. And now this is very interesting. This body is lying there, eyes are open, but cannot see. So now, having clarified that part of it, both the electricity and the appliance, and the human being and how it powers through all the various organs, sense organs, organs of actions, now let us come to the Devatas. And what we need to see is that for the Devatas also, same thing is there. The stuff behind the Devatas is Parameshvara. Just like the stuff behind all appliances is the electricity, and the stuff behind all of the Adhyatmika power is awareness. It is the same awareness that Parameshvara has. And so, when you go to the temple, Ganesha temple, Sanatana Dharma Kendra in San Jose, are you doing upasana to Ganesha? Because the Ganesha is like the eye. When you are saluting someone, you are not saluting the eye, you are saluting the awareness that makes the eye see. Similarly, when we go to the various Devatas, we should see that behind each Devata is the power of Ishvara. Why? Because the Devatas are nothing but an expression of Ishvara. Now, just like in the case of our sense organs and so on, the functions may be different. So if you suppose you are going to have an important function and you want to take the blessings of Ishvara so that all the obstacles are removed, you will go to Ganesha. But when you go to Ganesha, you really seek the blessing of Ishvara as a Ganesha. When you go to the Hanuman temple, you go to seek the blessings of Ishvara as a Hanuman. So one purpose of this section, this mantra, is to recognize the presence of Ishvara in whatever Devatas you are doing upasana for. So in fact, we can see that the first thing we saw was that the Devata gives us the idealistic set of qualities that I need to aspire to. So this is what we were talking about earlier, where Hanuman, the ideal Hanuman, is what I want to be. I want to be completely devoted. and I want to really explore my own power, to unearth, invoke my own power. This is what I want to do. So there is now a commonality between the devatas and me. And really at the same time, I should keep in mind that I am not separating one devata from the other. It's all one. Swamiji was saying that, for example, in India if you go to Bengal during Durga Puja. My father used to work in Calcutta for a while, and even otherwise, I was brought up a little bit in Bihar, which is close to Bengal, and you have no idea, if you haven't been there, what a beautiful setting it is during Durga Puja, where Durga, the Bhayankar looking person with her red tongue sticking out and so on, with weapons in hand and so on, how much she is worshipped by all the devotees in Bengal. So this is one thing. Then you go to Vaishnava Devi in Jammu, where there is a Devi who is on top of the hill. Very difficult to get there. Nowadays they're making it easier. But a lot of people just take the trek all the way up in the snowy mountains and on the top. So it would appear that if you talk to each one of them, the Bengali will say, that's nothing really. The main thing, it should be a Durga. Look at her form and her colors and so on. And the people in Jammu will say, that's not really Devi. The real Devi is the quiet one sitting there inside the mountain cave at the top of a hill. And the feeling you get when you're quiet, you're not dancing around doing Durga Puja or anything, you're just quiet and it's a completely different Devi. It's the same Devi. It's the same Devi. Durga is the same Devi as the Devi in Jammu. And so really speaking, so there should not be any differences. And so you create differences. And Swami Maheshananji is so funny. He says that, in fact, not understanding the unity in this is also unity in the diversity. Because just like in your case and my case, we have diversity of the various functions of my body, but there is unity in my understanding that those all are me. So similarly, there is unity and diversity in all the devatas. All the devatas have different functions, but really speaking, the unity comes from the fact that it is all Parameshwara. And Swamiji was giving a very funny, he says, I really have seen where people will go to Ganesha and they'll secretly say, hey Ganesha, if you give a first class to my daughter, then I will give 1,000 rupees to this temple for some renovation. And you don't even promise anybody. This is all between you and the Devata. Okay? Then your daughter actually passes. And in the meantime, you have not fulfilled the promise of giving 1,000 rupees to the Devata. Okay? Then comes another occasion where your mother is sick. And now you are afraid of going to the Ganesha temple because you will say that Ganesha will remember that I did not pay 1,000 rupees when my daughter passed. But if I go to a Krishna temple, Krishna doesn't know anything about Ganesha. So this is between me and Krishna. So I will just go. Swamiji says, this is the kind of thievery that goes on. And he had another very beautiful example. He says, there was a guy who had gone on some kind of a trip, business trip from his village. And coming back from the village, from the business, he had just gone to sell some things. And it was raining incessantly. And so on the way back, this small rivulet, which was next to his house, was really flooded. He had not seen that much water. He didn't know whether he didn't know swimming. So he says, I think I can go through. So he promised, he told Lord Ganesha, okay, I am just going to go cross this, and I need your blessings to make sure that I don't get into the flow of the water, and please let me cross. And for that I will give 500 rupees to the temple. So he started proceeding, and he found that really the water comes up to his knees sometimes came up to his waist, but he was able to negotiate. He went through halfway through the river. So then he said, Ganesha, I'm a very poor man. 500 was a little bit too much. I think I can pay 250. So if you just let me cross the rest of the river, then I'll pay 250 for sure. But you know how poor I am. I can't really afford 500. So then he goes to the last 10-15 feet, and he says, all this Ganesha business and blessings and so on and so forth, it is all poppycock. This is all written in books. There is no blessing of the Ganesha. How is he going to bless me? He's just sitting there like this. He's not going to bless me. It's really my own effort. I really put my feet down very properly. I think it's going to be okay. I'm not going to pay anything. Just 5 feet away from the reaching the other side, there was a huge hole that he stepped into, lost his footing, and was blown away. And Swamiji made just a story out of it. I don't know if it ever happened. But he says, this is how our relationship with the Devatas is. And it is needs to be improved, where you have devotion to the Devata. And more importantly than that, there is a two dimensions of being one with Ishvara. 2 dimensions. One dimension is that you look at what are the qualities of Ishvara that I want to have. Qualities of Ishvara are very simple. You are free of any problems. Ishvara also is the creator of the whole universe, but he's not bound by it. He enjoys the creation. Whereas I'm also part of the creation, but I'm bound by it. So the quality of Ishvara is asangoham. Even though I am just like seeing a movie, you're not really bound by, you're not touched by the tragedy of the movie. You eat your popcorn while you are watching the tragedy. It's not as though Ishvara is doing that, but I'm saying you and I can do that. So the qualities of Ishvara are the ones that I want to have. And so there are 2 dimensions of my approaching the qualities of Ishvara. One is, as I mentioned, the similarity of my qualities and the Devata's quality. And that was the example I gave on the Hanuman. So this is one dimension. So where you have no differences between them, you keep doing upasana until your devotion and your invocation of your own power is as good as that of Hanuman. This is one dimension. The other dimension is that you do not look upon various devatas separately, thereby creating some kind of, that devata doesn't know, it's okay, I can cheat this devata, but how will the other devata? No. They're all products of Ishvara, they're all powered by Ishvara, they're all withheld by Ishvara, they came from Ishvara. So there should be a recognition that no matter what I am doing, I am offering my life and my prayers and my bhakti and my devotion really to Ishvara. Maybe in different forms. Maybe that my paying taxes to the US government and my behaving myself in an ethical fashion so that I don't really get ticketed by the police. All those are different functions of the government, but really I am devoted to the government. So similarly there also. So this is the this is the purpose of the upasana and the purpose of doing yajna to the devatas. Okay. So this is a general introduction to this mantra. Okay. Having done that, we can now go to each of the 4 specific devatas and functions mentioned. The first one is Manaha. Chandrama Manaso Jataha. So the Chandra, moon, is born from the mind of Ishvara. This is the first one. And it turns out this is really the most important out of the 4. All 4 are important, but in terms of what my understanding needs to be, the lead is taken by this first one, which is Chandrama and Mana. Okay? And I don't think that I will have time to go to any one of them other than this pair, Chandrama and Manaha, today. And even there I may not be able to finish, but I'll start. So let's start on that. Okay. So the question is, let's look at Manaha. Manaha means the power to know. So, in fact, in the dictionary it is said Manaha is Jnane, in the sense of knowing, is Manaha. So let's just look at Manaha for the time being and look at all aspects of that, both Ishvara's Manaha and our Manaha, and the dissimilarity and similarity. So let's just focus on that. Now, the mind means to know, knowledge. So it should be seen that if the mind is not attentive, there is no knowledge. There is no knowledge. So for example, supposing you are sitting in a musical concert, in a local music concert, you're sitting there just enjoying the music and really just be totally devoted to it. And your eyes are open and you're just enjoying it. And there are other people sitting next to you and so on. And you're sitting on the edge of the chair, of a row of chairs. So suddenly somebody comes to you and said, "Sir, did you see a young girl pass by a few minutes ago? Because she's my daughter and I'm making sure that she doesn't get lost. She got up and did she pass through here?" So you say, "No, I'm sorry, I don't see her." The fellow sitting next to you who says, "Sir, yes, I did see her. Was she wearing a red dress?" And the person said, "Yes." He says, she just went out. She must have gone to the bathroom or something. She went there. Swamiji says, look, what sees is not the eyes, but the mind. If the mind is not there, you don't see. Now here, generally speaking, there is a close partnership between the sense organs, which is the ears and eyes, and the mind. So the mind is very closely tracking what the sense organs are saying, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. It can think of its own. It doesn't have to really depend upon the senses. So for instance, you can see things without the eyes. Like for instance, you do not see the fire, but you can conclude that there is a fire from seeing the smoke. So there is no perception of fire, but you can conclude that there is fire by looking at the smoke. Now, someone can say, yes, but you saw the smoke. You may not have seen the fire, but you did have a perception of the smoke. To this it is said, not necessarily. What do you mean by not necessarily? Because if you see smoke, unless you have, as we are going to be studying this in more detail in our Saturday morning class of Brahma Sutra, as you'll be seeing it, unless you have what is called Vyapti Jnanam. Vyapti Jnanam means that you must know wherever there is a fire, there is smoke. You may not know that. When you are 7 or 8 years old, you may not know that. So this is what is called samskara of the mind. Samskara of the mind. Samskara means that previously you must have known exactly the relationship between fire and smoke and be certain about it. Then you can see a smoke and say, yes, there is fire. But by simply looking at the smoke, you cannot say there is fire. So all it means is that you can actually see something with the mind without the sense organs. That's all the point is. You don't see the fire, but you can conclude that there is a fire from it. And in fact, this is same thing is true. This is called the samskaras of the mind. The mind has to be educated. This is a very important point, actually. We'll come back to it. This all has to do with the manaha of Ishvara. So say, for example, if I tell you in Hindi, Kitna sundar kamal hai. I'm just walking. In fact, I don't show it to you, but I'm walking and I tell someone, Kitna sundar kamal hai. What a beautiful lotus flower it is. So the word kamal, or in Sanskrit kamalam, if you don't know Hindi and if you don't know Sanskrit, the picture of a lotus will not come to your mind. Will not come to your mind. So you need to have the samskara of the language. You see, this is called Samskrita Manaha. Samskrita Manaha means that the language must create a connection between the lotus flower and the word lotus. And if you don't know Hindi, then Kamal will not do. You'll be blank. He says, what? You'll say, what a beautiful Kamal. So let's do that. The rest of the sentences in English, then you say, oh my God, what a beautiful Kamal. So you'll say, what? Beautiful what? Kamal. You know Kamal? Don't you know Kamal? Yes, so sometimes these incidences kind of leave you with some memories. I remember one time, I can't remember exactly how old I was. It must have been about 12 or 13 or so. So one of my cousin's husband went to England I'm talking about in the 50s, and spent 2-3 years, I don't know what he was studying or something, and he came back. And in those days, people that had gone abroad, even now I would imagine, but those who have gone abroad, they could be very, very proud and show off. I was in London for 2 months. You were in London, so what? No, this is, you guys are you're just villagers. You have no idea what a beautiful place it is. Like that. I remember this fellow come back, and one day he was actually there was something wrong with him. He was not a very smart guy, and he would just make statements. So one time he said, do you know what the English people say about curd, dahi? Do you know the word that they have for dahi? And I remember this so well because all of us were in the room together, and he says, anyone? And we were all saying, curd? No. Anyone else? And finally, after I think an amazing amount of delay, once he has gotten everybody's attention, don't you even know? They call it yogurt. Yogurt. So we all said, what? Yogurt? Yes, of course. So stupid. How will we know what they call the curd? That they call it yogurt, how will we know? And what difference does it make to us whether they call it or not? Anyway, coming back to this, when I was talking about this Kamal that came to me, that what a foolish person it was. He was just showing off that he went to England by pointing out that he knows a word that we don't. But anyway, so So the mind is the one that really sees things. It is the one that sees things. Everything else it sees is everything else that sees is just on the side, but the one which is seen is the mind. And I will close with a very interesting citing of two cases. One was cited by Swami Maheshanandji, and one which is a personal experience of my wife and I. And they are both to prove that the mind can see without senses. And when I read this incident that Swamiji was talking about in the Second World War, it reminded me of our own personal experience. So I'll close the class with just these two. Then I will take up this mind and Chandrama in more detail in the next class. Okay? So let me just close with this one. So it appears that in the Second World War, this is a very well documented incident. In the Second World War, at the time of the Pearl Harbor attack by the Japanese, there was a husband and wife who, their son was a pilot of a plane, American plane. Okay? So it appears that one night when this couple was asleep, this woman woke up around 2 o'clock. And that's what Swamiji has pointed out. At 2 o'clock, and woke her husband up and says, "I smell something burning." So her husband said, "You smell something burning?" "No, I don't smell anything." She says, "No, look around, go into this very dark house. I don't want to go, you go look for it." The other person said, "I don't know." Anyway, she's saying it, so he puts his dressing gown on, his slippers, and he goes around the whole house, and he comes back and he says, "No, I didn't see anything. Go back to sleep, it's okay. It's all right. It must have been a dream." He says, "I don't know. It's so very real to me." He goes back to sleep, cannot sleep, wakes him up again after about 15-20 minutes, and said, "Dear, I think there is definitely something. I see a very strong, and I see noises." So this guy really gets irritated. He says, "Something wrong with you or what? Because I don't hear any noises and I don't smell anything. Just stop bothering me." She says, "Okay." The next morning, they got a telegram saying that, "We are very sorry to tell you, your son was trying to bombard the Japanese warship or something, and he got hit by an enemy fire, and the whole aircraft fell down, and I'm afraid your son has also died." Her husband was shocked. Now, this is one incident. So this was Swamiji was saying that given some circumstances, and here the circumstance was that as a mother, her thoughts were always with her son. It happens. The father is non-concerned. Father says if he dies, I hope he doesn't die, but his mother could not remove her thoughts from her son. Where is he? What's he doing at this point? I hope he's okay. What a dangerous thing it is. It's almost like there was a connection all the time, and even though they were like thousands of miles apart. Now let me tell you my own, this is something you have to believe me, if you believe me. Okay, this happened too in my life. So, I don't know if you remember this or not, but the night that Robert Kennedy was assassinated in California in a hotel near Los Angeles. So this was late at night, around 11 o'clock or so. Okay? And my wife was watching, she was very fond of Robert Kennedy, and was watching television of him. And I also used to, I was also supporting his candidacy, and I was, but not as much as she was. She really wanted him to come. She was always connected to him. Do you know, right after we went to sleep, she woke me up and said, I think somebody has shot me in my neck. I turned to her and I said, what are you talking about? You're talking to me? She says, I don't know, it woke me up because I heard a gunshot, and so I said, it must have been a dream, just go to sleep. Next morning, I still remember, I was working for IBM at that time. I got up early in the morning to shave, and my wife was still asleep, and I put the radio on, and the radio was talking about it. Now they are taking his body to, I says, whose body? So then after a while it says, Robert Kennedy has been assassinated, he is now officially dead, and Sirhan has been arrested, and it happened at 11 o'clock at night. I said, oh my God, I cannot believe this. It is true. It is exactly what happened. So anyway, the upshot of this whole thing is, the mind is the one that knows. And the knowledge of Paramatma, the mind of Paramatma, created the moon for a particular purpose. That we will see in the next class. Sorry I had some extra time. I thought I will tell you that story before we broke for the class, and then we will take it up again next time. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Oops, my chat window has disappeared. What happened? Got it. So nice to see all of you. So good that you could attend the class. So nice to know that you're listening and watching. I miss seeing you guys. So anyway, very nice, and we look forward to this class next week as we conclude the Purusha Suktam, last section of it. And so I will see you a week from today. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Om.